Hi, Huntresses.
Welcome to Talk Rich to Me.
Where we explore the human side of finance. We're your co-hosts, Stephanie Gutman
And Ysenia Rhodes, co-founders of Huntress Wealth. Welcome back, Huntresses. This is Ysenia. On today's episode, I'm joined by Molly Morse, co-founder of Recess, a platform that helps parents find and book classes and camps for their kids. We're talking about something that quietly impacts many women's finances: the cost and logistics of camps, after-school programs, and what experts call wraparound care. This conversation is about the mental load, the financial realities of childcare, and some surprisingly affordable options that many parents don't even know exist. Let's dive in. Okay, so I'm here today with Molly Morse, co-founder of Recess.
Hi, Huntresses. Welcome to the pod.
I have never felt a camaraderie in my career amongst women as I have recently. And that is mostly due to you, Amy, and Laura. Y'all are such powerhouses and such a presence.
Thank you so much for saying that. I feel like people helped us so much. Like, I don't think we would have raised our round if it wasn't for other women being like, hey, this is what it's really going to look like to navigate this. And I'm just like such a big fan of if whenever you can, like reach back and help other women climb up. It is your job to do that.
So thank you for coming. We are here to talk about the affordability of camp and the logistics and just all the planning. And when we say camp, we're talking about day camps, whether that's summer camp, like random school holidays.
Yeah. I think if we look at the whole scope of what we call wraparound care and enrichment, it is after school programs. It's the weird day off coverage that you need, babysitters or camps. It's summer, but it's also the affordability of things like enrichment classes, ballet, sports, piano, stuff like that.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Molly?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm one of the founders of Recess, and Recess is the site for all the classes and camps in your city. We're live in Texas right now. You can kind of think of us like the Expedia of classes and camps. One place to find everything. Most of that stuff you can actually book directly through Recess. So it is meant to cut down on the time that parents, mostly women, spend sorting through Google search results, pinging and polling their friends, asking questions on Facebook of like, what do I do? Where are the camps? Really hard to find that stuff today outside of Recess. And then being able to purchase through Recess. We have a lot of those companies right now, and the partnerships with instant book companies are growing every day, is meant to cut down on the amount of like accounts and signups you have to do across a bunch of different apps, because it just, the logistics of that takes so much time, and it's a space that's governed mostly by moms, and so the people that feel it the most, that spend the most time doing it, is moms. I've been in startups for a while now. I've background building and managing marketplaces, and I became a mom. And just, if you're not a parent, and honestly, if you're not a mom, this space is like kind of invisible. So I became a mom and I was looking for enrichment activities, and I was like, what the heck is this? Like, this is the dustiest industry. I would get to pages and they would be like, call us to find out when our classes are. I'm like, I have to pick up the phone just to find out when you have class. Like, I can't even see when. I've mailed paper checks. I had to use a fax machine, and it just felt like all of the innovation in the tech space had left mothers behind. And as we were doing a bunch of research, so Amy and I, my co-founder, have just heard over and over again, moms be like, this is extraordinarily painful. It takes up so much time. It is a lot of money. I'm giving them the most precious thing in my life, my child. Like, why has nobody innovated here? I have lots of reasons and theories behind that, but yeah, it was just kind of perfect confluence of events. It was like Amy and I had the perfect skills to go after this. And then we just felt extraordinarily moved by the unfairness of the burden that this places on moms, the fact that this hasn't been innovated, right? Like we've innovated in short-term rentals, like in food delivery, in table reservations, and childcare is just like left in the dust. And it just feels like moms deserve better. So there's a lot of like passion and energy behind solving this.
I feel that passion right now as you just told me that. Your focus is mostly on camps, right? Or is it more on daycare?
So we actually don't do daycare or primary school day. We do all the stuff that wraps around and supports daycare and primary school day. So what we found is there's a lot of other companies, entities, there's a lot of other support for primary school, right? Like you've got Winnie, you've got some other places that are doing daycare. Primary school, a lot of people are covered. You're covered at a minimum with private or with public, sorry, and information on private schools out there. Where we saw complete disarray, no system at all, was wraparound care. And I think it's just been left behind, right? We're now around 67% of dual working households, both parents work. And that number is only increasing. But you have this school system that was really designed for a single working household. The expectation was we can do a partial day and a partial year because someone is at home. If that underlying assumption, there's not someone home all hours of the day, is no longer true, you have to have wraparound care. And there has been no support and no structure in this ecosystem. And so you've got parents, moms cobbling together care to span that gap.
Yeah, I couldn't feel this issue more thoroughly. I've been a working mom my entire life. I was raised by a working mom, and I was raised in a small town, and my parents could afford to have like a one-on-one after school. But when I moved to Austin and had children, that idea was unfathomable to me, and my parents would be like, "Oh, well, like, can't you just get a nanny?" And I'm like, "No, that
Mhm.
costs $50,000 a year." You go through the daycare process and you find that, but when you go to elementary school and you're looking for summer camps or whatever. Luckily, our school has a very easy like extended care YMCA
Nice.
in the like classroom program. But what's funny is we actually go to a school that we're not zoned to. So we do go to public
Mm,
school, but we go to a school downtown because I'm super passionate about being a Latina and having that culture of like
yep.
language and all that. And so at our current elementary school that we go to, they have aftercare program. But
Mhm.
what was really interesting to me is at schools around me, for example, the school that's a mile down south, they don't have aftercare.
Yeah. I remember when we were fundraising, and it usually happened when we were talking to a male partner, is they would say stuff like, well, one, is this even a problem? Is there much money here? And I was like, oh God, yes. But then the other thing that came up is, don't most people just have after school programs at school? I was like, no, a lot of schools don't have it. And if you do have it, there are always fewer seats in the after school program than there are seats in the school. Someone is not getting in. And so a lot of parents, by virtue of necessity, have to find other options. The other thing is we are seeing more and more money being pulled out of public education. And generally, the first thing to go is anything that's considered enrichment, extracurricular, things like that. So you're seeing more and more of the after school programs disappear.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because the school that I'm specifically referring to, I would think living in living in my neighborhood, there would be more dual income households. And so I was shocked that they did
Hmm.
not have an after school program. Actually, they do have one, but they don't have enough seats for all the
That's
students.
common, yeah.
Yeah, and that seems really hard. So I very much when people were like, "Are you going to transfer to that school?" I was like, "Absolutely not." Like, no, I need to know I have after school care.
Yeah.
And I understand why recess exists. When you talk to people about like everyone has used Airbnb, right?
Yes.
Most people in a major city have used DoorDash or like had this food
Uber.
delivery
Yeah.
marketplace service. And so it is honestly enlightening. Like I hadn't when you explained it that way, I hadn't really thought about it in that way.
Yeah. I always think like sometimes people sometimes people question, is there really enough demand here, enough money being spent here? Another question we often get is, can you really get all of these programs into one space? Like, it seems like it's complex. There's a lot of supply here. And the two examples I give are Airbnb created an asset class that did not exist before. These transactions are already happening. We can organize them. And the other thing is about spend. I think people are like, well, DoorDash is massive, Airbnb is massive. And I just ask people, like, think for a second about how much money you spend on DoorDash every year. Now think about how much you spend on childcare every year. What is greater? I promise that this market is massive. Parents are spending so much money here. It is beyond time to create some innovation and structure here. I just think that there's a wide chasm between the types of users that own and manage this space, which is moms, and the type of innovators that get funding, which is largely men without children. And the chasm means the people that are getting money for innovation are generally not the people that are aware of this problem. And so it's gone untouched for a long time.
It's funny because when we did our event a couple of weeks ago, my husband said, "So what's recess?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "It's a marketplace for summer camps." And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, like, why would I use that?" That was such an eye-opening moment of how much administrative work I take in the
Yes.
household.
I also think the lack of structure in this space contributes to inequity, because if there are a million puzzle pieces to work out, right? It's like, okay, I can get her to ballet, but I would need to carpool, but I can't carpool with Amber's mom because she's really lax on seatbelts, right? Or grandparents can help, but they don't feel comfortable driving more than 20 miles, right? There's all of these puzzle pieces that live in a very unstructured way. And by virtue of necessity, it generally has to be one person that holds that. And it is very hard to break off one puzzle piece and say, can you book this one camp? And a lot of moms try. You tell dad, can you book this one camp? And they will give it their best go, but they will inevitably miss one piece of the puzzle. And it'll be like, oh gosh, you didn't think about. And I think that it becomes very, very hard to share the load in this space as long as that information lives in a super unstructured way in one person's mind. And so part of sort of the foundation that needs to exist for equity to be possible is there needs to be a singular space where we can all access the same information. So then when I ask, my mom, my in-laws, my husband, hey, can you get this done? We're looking at and dealing with the same information. So I really think it's going to be very hard to hand off any portion of the mental load here until we have structure.
So I'm not just smarter than my husband.
I mean, you might be.
I will say I talk about, I clearly halfway joking, halfway being serious. That was a real conversation we had about recess, but I sometimes just think that, like, as women, at least for me, I process things and I'm just like, this is so much easier for me to just do myself rather than teaching the other person. But my husband does a lot of it, right? Like, so I do the administrative tasks of booking and stuff, but he does most drop off and pick up, which
That's
is
super common.
amazing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, that takes off a bunch of mental load. So even if it takes maybe some time out of my workday to figure out what camps we're doing, what summer camp, like putting it on my calendar, I at least know, like, I don't want to take away from the fact that he shares in the logistical nature of getting from A to B. I was very astounded by a stat that you threw out the other day, and it made sense to me after I read it, but I was also a bit astounded by it. So if your child is elementary aged or above, you said that there was 46% of the time that our kids are not in school.
Yeah. And to be clear, that is 46% of weekdays. So sometimes people are like, well, weekends. I'm like, no, that doesn't include weekends. That's weekdays. So it's nearly half the weekdays of the year your kid is in school and the other half they're out of school. So when we talk about the amount of care that moms have to organize, it is massive, right? Maybe you're not paying for care all of those days, but there is still some coordination of like, okay, you're going to be home with me during the working day. And how do I manage that? Or we have to get grandma. Like, that is an extraordinary amount of care that moms have to coordinate.
Yeah, and I've certainly felt that burden myself and felt maybe like locked into a situation. And I I mean, I guess going back to the core of this conversation is there's not that much information on camps, right? And then there's the financial aspect. So how has that intersected for you guys at Recess? Like helping people understand the financial implications of camp or like the affordability of it at the same time.
Yeah. So I think that there are two things. One is there's way more out there than people expect. And two, it can be much more affordable than people expect. So one of the issues with there not being structure here is that generally people only know about a handful of programs, right? It's the programs that sort of everyone knows about in every city. It's the YMCA, JCC, Parks and Rec program, maybe a couple of the well-known institutions, like in Austin, it would be Paramount. And then there's a couple that like your parent group chat have sort of tossed around. And there's this perception that everything is sold out. It's because a lot of people are competing for the same spots in a few of the well-known camps. Um, so one thing that we get when we build some structure here, when we get everything in one place, is you realize just how much inventory is actually out there. That is a huge pressure valve release, right? Like I don't actually have to sign up for camp in January. I can sign up for camp in April once I know what we're actually doing for the summer. There's way more out there than people expect. It's just like most of these people are fantastic with kids. They are not fantastic with SEO. And so they're on page 12, 13 of Google search results, and most parents just don't find them. So that's the number one thing. There's more out there than people realize. That means there is way more of a span of affordability, right? If you knew all the programs out there, you would see that you can actually get down to like $30, $40 a day at a lot of these programs. There's also programs that people don't realize are completely free. So when we talk about affordability, if you have the money to put your kids in every camp that they want, that you want, like God bless. Like I love that for you. Most parents do not have that option. And so we generally counsel parents to combine a really affordable option for the majority of the time you need care so that you can save your money to splurge on maybe one thing that you think is really important for your child or that they're really excited about. Sometimes parents are like, I feel bad putting my kid in the same thing every day during summer. And my response is, your kid is in the same thing every day during the school year. They are very used to, and in many cases, do better with regular routine. There are a lot of programs too that have theme weeks that make that even better. So you could do one program for the whole summer and they have space theme, art theme, sports theme. But I would say you generally want to find your low cost, most day program. That also relieves a ton of logistical burden because you don't have to figure out new drop off spots. Am I bringing a packed lunch? Am I not? So we can do a low cost option for most of the summer. And then you can save your money to do that one like amazing STEM camp or the equestrian camp that they've been dying to do. And that's a great way to balance kind of affordability and fun. And then for parents who really need support, there's actually quite a lot of options out there. So most cities have a free option. Austin, for example, has the Austin Summer Playgrounds program. It is a 100% free program. No,
Wow, I did not. Sorry to interject, but I've lived here for 20 years and did not know there was a free summer camp program.
so few people know about this program. It astounds me. So it's held in Austin parks throughout the city. There is no registration cap. The city of Austin will meet whatever demand there is. They will bring on people to meet. So you're not like hustling for seats. It's drop in, which means you can do any hours of the day, drop off any hour of the day, pick up any hour of the day. There is no income requirement. Anyone can qualify, and you don't have to be within Austin city limits. And so I think a lot of the issues we've had in this space is people just like, don't even know what resources are available. The other thing is if people are, low income, there's a lot of programs if you qualify for free school lunch that offer scholarship or free programs. So we see scholarships in everything from obviously YMCA, JCC, Boys and Girls Club, but even like really high quality, very expensive camps like ID Tech is one of the premier STEM camps in the country. They're held on like MIT, Stanford campuses, right? They have one at UT, does scholarships. I-9 is a program that's really committed to scholarships. So there's just way more opportunity out there than people think to sort of manage the costs here.
Yeah, and when we chose to go, like, to Becker, at the time, it was a Title I school, and part of it was a lot of it was language, but a lot of it was also my children seeing other socioeconomic backgrounds and, like, kids of color. I am curious, and I don't wanna put you on the spot, is, like, is Recess doing any of the outreach to communities and schools?
Yeah. So recess, I mean, we're super committed to this. One, we commit a portion of our profits to go back to schools. So we have what we call PTA Give Back Fund, which is if your PTA agrees to work with us, it is like an evergreen fundraiser. You just have to put your school code in when you book, and we give a portion of our profits back to the school. And it's like no strings attached. We just want to get money back into schools. It's something that feels really mission aligned for us and has been important to us from day one. The other thing is we're really committed to getting scholarship and free programs on our platform. So we're in the process of getting Boys and Girls Club on our platform. We make no money on any bookings that happen through that, but it feels important to us to have those resources on there. And then for scholarships and other kind of free programs, it can be very hard information to collect. So we're in the process of collecting all that information. We have a list. So if anyone wants to email me, I have a list ready to go of all the stuff that's like free scholarship, grants, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll work to getting that more structured data on our site so you can actually use filters to find it a lot easier.
I was speaking with someone the other day, and I go to a dual language program, and they were talking about how their dual language program, they can't really get engagement from the community. And part of that is because they're true parents are true Spanish speakers, and they're working these crazy jobs from, like, they're not making as much money as we are, but they're
Yeah.
working longer hours, right? And so it's
Yep.
hard to get those parents to engage on top of the barrier of having a language barrier
Hmm.
and everything that's going on in our country today, right? And so I I'm just like the link to getting that access into their hands is so much, and you know this,
Hmm.
so much more complicated
Hmm.
than
Yes.
having like you having the resources is one thing, but like even if they know that, like, you know what I mean, there's just like getting them to be comfortable doing this.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time talking about this too, that oftentimes the barrier is not simply monetary. It's usually monetary and um access to the resources or the time that it takes to access resources. So um I think in many ways a lack of structure begets a lack of equity, because if it is very hard and very time consuming to find the resource, generally the people who have the least amount of money also have the least amount of time because they're working dual jobs. They're managing so much. And those are the very people that can't afford to spend the time to dig deep for these hidden resources. And so part of our mission is like, how do we just bring these up to the surface and make them super easy to find? Because even if there's scholarships, great. If no one can find them, it just does not do the work you need it to do.
Absolutely. Can I ask why you're so passionate about this?
I feel like we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but I had a lot of access to activities. Um, I think a lot of it was when I was a kid, rec leagues were still a thing. You know, like parents would volunteer and you paid like $5 or something.
Actual rec.
Yeah, like actual rec leagues. Um, and there was a lot more access and ease in that. And as that's disappeared, and there's been so much kind of investment in and pressure to join these travel sports, you see the disappearance of rec sports, and you're seeing kind of a loss of access. And I have a lot of feelings about that, and I really want as many kids as possible to be able to get into programs that spark their passion. I had that when I was a kid, and I felt really lucky. And we've said from day one, like, we believe all kids deserve to go to camp. And that means regardless of income, regardless of ability. So the other place we get a lot of inquiries are my child has some kind of special need, learning disability, physical disability, learning difference. This perception is there's nothing available. And there's so much available. It's just, again, very hard to find outside of recess. So another thing that we're really passionate about is bringing those resources to the surface. There's a lot of really amazing specialty camps. And again, a lot of these are free. Like we were working with experience camps. They're coming to Texas for the first time this year, which is a grief camp for kids who have lost a close family member or friend, like really unique things. It's completely free. So again, it's like, how do we direct people towards the resources that they need?
I love that.
Yeah.
I
It's a
really
beautiful
do.
program.
What's another way to manage the finances of after school care and camps?
I think the biggest thing is Dependent Care FSA. So not all employers offer this. And if they don't, there is a really easy case to make to try to get your employer to offer this. It's actually very cheap to manage. And most employers get benefit on their payroll taxes. So we have a script for how to encourage your employer to offer Dependent Care FSA. Anyways, if you do have a Dependent Care FSA, I would highly recommend you max out or as close to max out as possible for what makes sense for your family. A very exciting thing, Dependent Care FSA limit was increased for the first time in 40 years. So it went from $5,000 a year per household to $7,500 per year per household. If you have a child in daycare, you're probably spending an average of $10,000 to $15,000 a year in care, and so you should absolutely be maxing out that Dependent Care FSA. So, Dependent Care FSA is pre-tax income, which means you're saving around 20 to 30% per dollar put into that account. So, that is the quickest way to save 20 to 30% of the costs of care. I think what a lot of parents don't realize is you can also spend Dependent Care FSA on camps. So the main thing is the camp has to be during the time that the parent is working. And I say during the time the parent is working, not just school day, because some parents work other hours. So mostly it's going to be during the school day. So a 9 to 5 camp or anything within that period of time. It can even be like a soccer clinic. It can be ballet camp. It can be STEM camp, as long as it's during the time where, the parent is working and the child needs supervision and care. Overnight camps generally don't qualify. Occasionally you can get overnight camps to break out the cost of care during the working day versus overnight, and then it can qualify, but you generally have to look a little bit closer into those. And then you can use it for camps on those weird days off. So if you need to pay for coverage, camp, babysitter, nanny on like one of those weird teacher training days, like September 22nd, teacher training day, you can get that covered by Dependent Care FSA. One thing is if you're paying it towards babysitting, nannying, worth mentioning to get that credit back or to get the dependent care funds for that, you need the social security number of your babysitter or nanny.
Yeah, so you need to 1099 any of your babysitters. I'm surprised we haven't really gotten to here yet, but I always took advantage of my dependent care.
Mm-hmm.
And most of that was very it was very planned because it is use it or lose it for people that don't know that.
Absolutely. Like you do not want to put more in there than you'll use. You generally want to like do the math. How much am I spending? Daycare is easiest, right? Because it's like a regular bill. I know exactly how much I'm going to spend on it. When you're getting into the babysitting nanny camp space, it can be a little more variable, but like sit down, do the math, and then I would put in maybe like 10% less, just so you're not ending up with a situation where you can't use what's left there.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that don't know, the deadline, if you do have a dependent care credit and you haven't submitted your receipts, that is coming up very soon.
Yes.
I need to do that for my last job. So I'm like, it's in March. I remember that.
Not for dependent care, but regular FSA. Have you been to the FSA store?
No.
Okay, there's an FSA store and there's literally a section that says surprising things you wouldn't think are covered by your FSA. It's like mattresses, red light masks. So if you are getting to the end of the period where you need to spend it, like one, stock up on tampons, get those.
We all need them
for the rest of time. And then check out the FSA store. It's like a odd treasure trove.
I would love that. I'm like, I've been wanting that PMF or whatever it is, the magnetic mat, like as I'm looking at the vibration plate. Thank you for that hot tip. Yes, sorry. Like if I'm trying to guess my dependent care and my mental load is so crazy, and what would you tell someone on average is going to be your cost of camps plus aftercare?
Aftercare, you're generally looking in the range of 400 to 600 a month through the school year. And it depends on the program, right? So like the YMCA that's on school campus is going to be far less than the, program that picks up and transports from campus. For summer camp, you're generally looking in the realm of 400 to 600 per week. Which is steep. I know we see parents spending between 3 and 10,000 for summer, depending on if you're traveling, you don't need camps the whole time, or grandparents can watch, or you're balancing that with, free or affordable care. But if you're spending 500 a week, that's around 2,000 a month. You've got 3 months of summer. That adds up very quickly if you are having to do camp the whole summer.
Amazing. And I know that we've talked about the affordability, the finances of it, but when we talk about the overwhelm of planning, what's your biggest hot tip? Like, when should we start looking on recess for camp?
Whew. Okay. So, some camps open as early as January. It sucks. And I promise when recess is national, you will see that pull into, earlier and earlier. You will see that diminish. Right now, it's this because people think there's very little supply. People book earlier and earlier and earlier. Camps know they can get you earlier and earlier and earlier. That's why that's happening. So you get on recess, you reveal how much supply is, parents will feel less pressure. But we are still in the world where that's happening. In some markets like Boston, it opens up as early as November. So, real talk, for very competitive programs like the Paramount, it's going to open up in January, February. It's going to book out in 5 minutes or less. Having said that, there are a ton of programs that are not like that. So there are going to be a few of highly competitive programs. You are going to want to save the date, mark it on your calendar. They're going to make you wake up at 5 a.m. because it's just like a diabolical space. uh, and then do that for the one STEM camp your kid is dying to get into, right? And then just give yourself a break and look at all the other programs we have. You can book these into April, May. You can book programs as late as August for the August semester. There is stuff out there. So I think that if you can, and you want to lock something down, do it. But I don't think you need to be as stressed as people felt in previous years about I feel like I have to commit to my entire summer by January. Like recess is really a panacea for that. Like wait until you know what you're doing. You know when your travel is, you know when the grandparents can come, you have some time.
As we were preparing for this, I went and looked at your LinkedIn and I saw that you had a post about the ROI on childcare.
Yes.
And as we think about equity for women and everything, what's your hot take on that?
Oh man, there have been some companies that have been leading the charge on childcare as a benefit. Patagonia is like a cream of the crop, and actually shown that the retention rate is, over 90% with their benefits. The sort of absenteeism has plummeted. The ROI is astronomical. And you see most Fortune 500 companies now offering some kind of childcare benefit. So if you're at a Fortune 500 company, your company probably provides something like Bright Horizons, or, care.com. Bright Horizons is definitely the category leader. So there is an acknowledgement by the top companies that it is worthwhile to provide these benefits, because ultimately, if you are a parent and you have care, it means you can come to work. And so companies are seeing it. I don't think that it's made its way into sort of the larger conversation about benefits packages. So you haven't really seen it move past the Fortune 500 companies yet, which is a shame. So maternity care is becoming more common, right? Again, that started as like in the 2010s. Before that, maternity coverage was there was very little. 2010s, it started to become this thing that companies were using to differentiate themselves and attract female candidates. And then it sort of caught. You see more and more companies picking it up, still not enough. And sort of the next wave has been childcare benefits. So you're seeing like 100 hours that you can use through Bright Horizons, stuff like that. So hoping the conversation on this really accelerates and this expands.
Yeah, I know we're using a lot of acronyms, but just for all the girlies out there, ROI is return on investment. So we're talking about how important that is for your company to invest in that, and also to make sure you know what
Yes.
your company is doing. Because I was completely astounded when my friend told me she got $6,000 for just childcare. Like
Love.
there was nothing needed other than
I have a
like
kid. They're like,
yeah, I have a kid. I'm going
love.
to use this. I'm going to pay for a babysitter.
Yeah.
That didn't have to be. It wasn't dependent care, you know? And so just make sure you're looking at all of your benefits and seeing that.
Absolutely. I actually talked to someone last week and I was like, oh yeah, Bright Horizons is amazing. And I was like, they're at a bunch of companies. And I named one company and she was like, wait, I have Bright Horizons? And I was like, girl, yes, you have free childcare through your company. So it's something that people don't realize. And Bright Horizons, like a lot of the enterprise backup care, it's not only their centers, but they also will send a sitter to your house. And they're getting into camps as well. So you can book camps through your enterprise benefit. So absolutely check through your employer and see if you have any benefits.
So we ask every huntress this question, and I feel like I've asked you for your hot tips this whole time.
Yes.
But what is your one big piece of advice to all of the huntresses out there?
Oh gosh, I'm going to go like female entrepreneur mode. Yes. So, if you're intimidated by the cost and the logistics of starting your own company, it is possible. There are resources. You got this. So I don't know if that's a hot tip as much of just encouragement of like, moms can do it. Does that count as a hot tip?
It is a hot tip. I mean, and you'll find, and don't think that there's not going to be people uplifting you, right? Like, not that I mean to get on your advice train, but like without starting a company, I wouldn't know Molly Morse. Maybe she linked me. I don't think so before. But I just, no, it's worth the leap of faith.
Totally.
We can all do this, not just the 99% of men that are founders that get funding.
Oof, that stat hurts.
Okay. And then the last thing is, what does the word rich mean to you?
Ooh. Being able to do really fun activities with my daughter without stressing about the cost of those. So like my daughter loves ballet and I want to be able to take her to the ballet without really sweating the cost of those tickets or Disney on Ice, Lord save us, but like she's going to love it. I don't want to look at those tickets and be like, I don't have enough left over for this. So that's what rich means to me. And I would say like real rich is like not looking at the price on a menu or like ordering the market price and not having to ask what the market price is. Like that's big rich.
Freedom.
Full financial freedom.
Full financial freedom. Like, actually, I don't care. I just
don't even tell me the market price, girl. Just bring it.
Yeah. I feel every time I'm like,
future.
That sounds so good, but what's the market price?
And no one's like, can you please tell me the market price? Well, people do it, but you're always like a little embarrassed to ask the market price.
Yeah. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it and we talk about all this pressure, they want it to be that way. So I'm just going to have no fear and ask next time. What's the market price? I don't care that you think I'm poor. God, that's so awful, but it's true.
So yeah, my goal in life is never have to ask the market price again.
We're so close.
We're almost there.
You got the funding. You're so close. You're at least that percentage.
Yes.
Anyways, it was so nice to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing everything. I hope many women are encouraged to do the camp. It's okay. You can still work and it's affordable.
For sure. Yes.
Okay.
You can do it. Well, I'll say thank you for having me. This has been delightful.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Talk Rich to Me, a production from Huntress Wealth. For more chill takes on finance, sign up for our newsletter at huntresswealth.com. That's HUNTRESSWEALTH.com.